Next up, we have a post-mortem, and this is for one of the most anticipated Romanian games, and one of the candidates at the Romanian Game Awards show tomorrow evening. Please welcome Victor Rubinstein from EdgeFlow Studio.
Hi, does this work? It does. Okay. So initially the presentation was called the Breachway Post-Mortem, but actually the game is not done, it's not dead also, so it felt kind of weird. So it's a pre-post-mortem because the game is still in early access. All right. So some disclaimers, first of all. One, I'm nervous. Two, I have a stutter. Three, I thought the presentation was supposed to be an hour. I didn't check the schedule. So I have a lot of slides. Yeah, it's also pretty information dense. And there'll be a lot of text. You don't have to bother reading it. It's mostly for me to not get sidetracked. So yeah. All right, so most presentations online, you find online, have a lot of great general game development advice, but it's usually in a vacuum. So I thought it might be useful to have, to correlate some of that advice to the actual reality of making a game, a messy reality of making a game, at least in Breachway's case. And hopefully this can help people that find themselves in any of the stages that we went through. I think we made a lot of mistakes. We did some things right, and hopefully it'll be an interesting presentation. Right. First of all, what is EdgeFlow? EdgeFlow is a 3D art outsourcing studio that we founded I founded originally in 2014, and then added some more people to it. We started doing real-time graphics for VR applications. We actually wanted to make games, but it took a while to get there because we didn't have the experience, we didn't have the money to do it. We started doing outsourcing in 2018, and then transitioned to full-time game development in 2023. However, before starting our first actual commercial game, we created a small free mobile game as a test to see what the steps were in making a game, what the pipeline is, and so on. So this is how Infinite Regime came to be. It was a 3.5-month project that we did 4 people. The idea came after having a couple of beers. We did 0 marketing for it. We released it for free on the Play Store, not on the Play Store, not on the App Store because we didn't have a Mac, so we couldn't build for iPhones. So after this game it went really well. We just made it straight up, no problems, it seemed like game development was very easy to do, seemed super easy and fast. So then we went on to do Breachway, which I'll go into detail. The big picture is the Breachway is a turn-based sci-fi spaceship combat game. It has deck building elements. It's inspired by FTL and Slay the Spire. It was made by at full capacity we were a 4-man team, but most of the time we were I would say on average probably more like 2 people. Some stats to see why this presentation is relevant. Breachway had almost 172,000 wishlists on launch, which made it the 152nd most wishlisted game on Steam. This morning, we sold over 60,000 units on Steam, plus some smaller percentage on the other stores. We have an average playtime of 9 hours, 20 minutes, median playtime of 3 hours and 23 minutes, which is, I think, it's kind of low. It's something we want to improve. So let's go over the development journey. Right, so we started the game originally in 2018. It was supposed to be a quick multiplayer card game because card games seemed very easy to make at the time. Also, it was inspired by a game called Archomage, which was a game within a game in Might and Magic 7, which I played as a child, which seemed like a very simple and fun game, and something that I felt like I could do alone. Development was supposed to last for 6 months. Oh, and also, I'm not a programmer, I'm an artist. So I was thinking that I could do it myself, was a bit optimistic. Yeah, I decided because I was the developer initially, to have it be in a sci-fi setting, because at the time most card games, and still are, kind of fantasy based, although there's a lot more diversity now. And it just seemed like a sci-fi setting would help it stand out somewhat. Yeah, by the spring of 2019, I had already hired a programmer a few months prior. And we did have a basic prototype with some cards. Initially, it was just a pure reskin of Archimage, but we just swapped out castles for spaceships, and the three resources became sci-fi resources like mass, ordnance, and energy. But in time, having it be set in as a space game kind of created some interesting design elements, and I grew to be really passionate about game design because of it, which would later be an issue. So in total, we developed the game for 2.5 years as a multiplayer game. It was off and on. We had zero funding for it. We just funded it from the work we did from EdgeFlow. I had a lot of fun designing it. The programmer had less fun with me not knowing what programming is about, and I just kept bombarding him with things I asked for, and yeah. And we constantly had issues with player states not being in sync, which made for really tough iteration and testing, and slowed down the design process quite a bit. Right, so first sidetrack out of a few. Who spotted the giant red flags in the presentation so far from the development? I'll go over them because, yeah, that's the presentation. So the first problem is that we started making a game in a genre we knew very little about. It just seemed like an easy game to do, but I had no idea if that was actually the case. Zero research. I just went from a feeling. One of the original inspirations came from a game made by Blizzard, which is not a small company. And I had, of course, I had no idea how much work went into it. I was still pretty ignorant about game development, even though we did work for 6 years before making up art for other games. But yeah. We also set out to create a multiplayer game that was technically challenging, proved to be too technically challenging for us in the end, and has one issue that all multiplayer games have. You need players so that other players can find matches. So you need to have a big launch. And we had no idea how to get there or what it was. Another thing for the design department, a card game needs a lot of work, design work, and it needs a lot of systems to come together before you can actually call it fun and judge if it even is fun, which means that it took us about a year until we had something playable and we could judge if it was fun. Which took way too long in terms of development time, in terms of budget, before we even knew if the game was worth developing or not. Also, the technical issues with multiplayer meant that the game couldn't really be played. So I kept myself busy, and because I really enjoyed designing the game, I just kept bombarding our programmer with a lot of ideas and changes for new mechanics, and expecting a result in a couple of days, which drove him crazy, and also made for a really messy code that we still paid the technical debt off from those early decisions. Yeah, so a few key takeaways from this part of development: don't make a multiplayer game as your indie studio's first title, especially, unless you're one of the 0.1% that make it and you have a little company or whatever. In that case, disregard my advice. Yeah, bring your game to a playable state as soon as possible to see if the concept is even worth pursuing. Don't wait 2 years like we did. Another really important thing that we didn't do, because we funded the game from EdgeFlow, was that set some constraints in terms of time and money. so that you have something to measure against. Because otherwise, it just is like an open field, and you can go anywhere, take as long as you want, just follow the fun, right? And create a game that plays to your team's strengths. We didn't do a card game before. We didn't do a multiplayer game before. Basically, like we could have done other games that we knew how to do better, but we didn't. Yeah, and just avoid genres you don't have any experience in. Right, so at the end of 2020, so that's like 2.5 years, we decided to cut our losses and pivot the game to a single-player roguelike. Slay the Spire was pretty big at that point, so it was kind of like a bit of an inspiration. Like in order to, because we were becoming a single-player game, we needed a lot of elements outside of the core combat functionality. So we added a galaxy map, like some nodes, took some elements from FTL. And initially we thought, okay, let's check what is a single-player game. We just make the second player, let's play cards automatically, but still keep most of the code from the multiplayer game, which again was it took us 6 months to clean that error up in the end. So yeah, as we started developing the single-player version, we added elements outside of the core combat loop, equipment, crew, leveling, stories, events, missions, quests, factions, whatever. Just went wild. Like it was so freeing to be able to do all of these things after you were constrained by a symmetrical 1v1 combat game. So yeah. Tying all of these separate elements into a cohesive whole proved to be very difficult. We still struggle with it. There's still like some things that could be better implemented and tied to the whole other thing. Yeah, so our elevator pitch became FTL meets Slay the Spire, which was very easy to explain initially. Before we did that, it was like, yeah, well, we have this game where you have spaceships that fight, but it's actually you play cards, and it was super difficult to communicate to people, very difficult for people to get excited about the concept. But once FTL meets Slay the Spire appeared, like just instantly people got it, and they resonated with it, and that's when we started getting some attention. All right, so another sidetrack. Complexity and scope creep. Yeah, if you like game design, coming up with interesting design ideas is fun, can make you feel really smart, and is like, yeah, feel as like the greatest designer to ever live. It is very easy to overdo, however, and you can end up with a very like kitchen sink, confusing, unfocused game. And so there are some things to keep in mind whenever you add any mechanic to your game. Like ask yourself some questions and be aware of what that means. Besides sounding cool, it also needs to be clearly communicated to players. It will make your game more likely to break as there are more interrelated elements that can cause issues. It increases the mental effort a player has to make to get into the game, which means like, do you want to have a 30-minute tutorial? A lot of players don't tolerate that. It's way too long. And all the elements need to work together as a cohesive whole, which can lead to you adding more elements to make the existing elements like tie in better, which is it's not a good place to be. So I would like here to make a distinction of complexity versus depth, with depth being the amount of possible results that can emerge from a set of rules. So, and complexity is like the other thing, is the amount of rules your games has. So a high depth to complexity ratio is a sign of a good game, like which means the fewer design elements you have, but the higher like emergent complexity that leads to is the sign of an elegantly designed game. Don't mistake complexity for depth. Like don't think that adding one more feature makes your game deeper and more like hardcore or something, which I did. Yeah, and more complexity does not automatically mean more depth, but it does mean more friction for players, and yeah, it just adds a bigger mental load for players to get into the game, which can turn off a bigger part of the audience. Scope creep. So if your game is not compelling enough, again, it's easy to fall into the mindset of just adding one more feature or one more thing, and then it'll all click together. And because like the game is not fun yet, but wait until I add this one thing, and then it'll be the best thing ever. Instead, you should constrain yourself with what is already there and just take a look. Like, does it work? Doesn't it work? If it doesn't, why? Is it worth pursuing? Is it worth saving, or just do something else? Yeah. Just so basically, complexity is bad, makes your game unwieldy, and try to avoid it as much as possible. Right. So back to the development story of Breachway. At the time, it was called Warlike. It was a work in progress title. It took us a long time to come up with the name, actually. But yeah, once we had the basic implementation of the single-player loop, this was, I think, about mid-2021, so already 3 years into development. It was still part-time development, but still 3 years is 3 years. So we wanted to validate the concept ASAP and see if it's worth pursuing. Like, finally get some player feedback, because we've been doing all of this work for so long and no one knew about it. So it was a bit scary as how people would react to it. So yeah, we did post a build on Reddit. We actually got a pretty good feedback from people. So it was like we were somewhat validated and happy that we didn't work for 3 years for nothing, which could have happened, but we're just lucky. So yeah, don't wait 3 years for that, for your first demo. Yeah, so now that we had a clear pitch, we had some validation. We started paying more attention to marketing, in quotes, and starting posting on our Twitter page. Yeah. So because the game looks like it does, EdgeFlow was a 3D art outsourcing company. So we knew how to do 3D. We weren't as good at 2D. So we basically made the game 3D, which means that it didn't look like any other card game out there. And people were excited about it. Like, in their head, who knows what they imagined. But it worked out. Like, we got some really good engagement on some posts, and that's also when publishers started noticing us. Just because it stood out from other games, and because it had like a clear elevator pitch that people got. We actually started being contacted by publishers, which was felt pretty good. Too good, actually, because I immediately, when I saw we had publisher attention, I immediately felt free to, okay, let's just add more stuff then, because hey, we can do it. We have publishers knocking at our door. So then we added multiple factions. We added a faction relation system, where, like, depending on the actions you took in the game, the factions would respond differently to you, and you could take quests, you could have items, which would affect, like, combat or faction relations, or you could smuggle things, you could, a lot of things. All right, so let's talk a bit about self-promotion and publishers, because this is a thing that I knew nothing about, even maybe, like, at that point, definitely, and at the start of 2022. And there were a few things that were interesting for me to find out. This is a bit cliche, but it's never too early to start talking about your game. But it's mainly for the reason of seeing how people respond to it. Like, is it like, are they interested? Does the concept hold any water? Initially, it's difficult to reach people because there's so many games out there, and all of them are vying for your attention. So you need to be consistent and just keep at it, and your reach will grow, especially if people are interested in your game. Create a theme page relatively early, after your game looks somewhat decent, because gathering wishlists can take a lot of time, and publishers these days are way more interested in the wishlists you do have, to mitigate the risk that they're taking on, to minimize it. So I would suggest that getting wishlists is actually an important step these days before talking to a publisher. Once you have something playable, try to bring people into your Discord server, and start building a community. Communities are super important these days with all of the games that are out there. And just talking to people that have played your game and seeing what they like about it is invaluable. This is another side note, howtomarketagame.com. You probably all know it. It's a great resource to learn about marketing, how to set up your Steam page, the inner workings of the Steam algorithm. It's just a great resource. It helped me out a lot in when I started self-promoting the game. A bit about Twitter. That's what I call X, by the way. It's a good place to market directly to, but it's not a good place to market directly to potential players. Basically, we had a post that had 1,200 likes and over 150 retweets, and it resulted in roughly 80 wish lists the next day. So it's not the best return on investment, and I think that was our best performing post at that point. So Twitter sucks if you want to market to players and gain wish lists. That's not what it's for. It is, however, a great place to talk to other devs. There's a lot of development communities there. You can make relationships with other devs that really help, because sometimes working on games can be a bit isolating, because usually, especially in Timișoara in our city, no one around you works on games, probably in most places, right? So it can be a bit isolating, and talking to other people really helps. In the end, there's a lot of what Twitch does have, Twitter, sorry, is a lot of streamers, content creators, and publishers. So that helped us a lot in it's not great for directly marketing to potential players, but it's great for indirectly marketing to potential players. So that's something to keep in mind. Oh, and also it doesn't really matter what platform you use. I use Twitter because that's what I used, but the most important thing is to start somewhere, and then you'll see what works and what doesn't, and you adjust. Right, about publishers. So we talked to about 10 publishers in total. All of them contacted us first. We wrote, I think, about 5 emails to different publishers. None of them replied, including our publisher, our current publisher, which we rubbed in their face later. And also keep in mind that moving forward with the publisher can be time-consuming. Depending on the size of the publisher and the way they are set up, you can have 5 meetings before you talk to someone who can actually make a decision. A pitch deck is good to have, but a solid demo is so much better, because pitch decks can be misleading, and they're everyone has one. Solid demos are a bit more rare. And as a fun fact, when we actually talked to our publisher, they said that was the first pitch deck they saw, and they already signed 10 games. And they were actually surprised that we had a pitch deck. Not all publishers are equal. And by the way, I will probably go over time. I'm sorry, I know there's a lunch break after this. If you, for some reason, decide to stick with the presentation after the lunch break starts, I'll have some stats at the end. I'll tell you how much money we made. So, yeah. So after the novelties of publishers being interested in our game kind of started wearing off, we kind of figured out that we don't know what publishers actually do besides giving you money, which is what we were interested in. But also, we started to ask ourselves, okay, so there's all these publishers, how do we rank them? Some of them didn't sound like they knew what they were talking about in some regards, which was a bit worrying. But the question where most publishers kind of stumbled and went really vague was when we asked them how they will market our game, what will they actually do to bring players to Breachway. The answers were it depends, each game is unique, we'll figure it out once we sign the contract, and don't worry about it, basically. Also, some publishers propose a very high marketing budget, which is they spend at their discretion. So keep in mind, initially we thought, hey, cool, they want to spend $250,000 marketing our game. That means they're really confident in our game. But actually, they can spend it on making Breachway's website better, $20,000, right? And then that's money you have to recoup through sales. So I would be wary of people that propose a very high marketing budget, especially because these days money you put into the game into marketing does not result in wish lists or getting anything back for it. And also one other thing that was kind of surprising was that some publishers they are very big names. So, and they have big titles that we all heard about. But if you look at all of the games they published, there are some titles that have 20 reviews, 25 reviews, and this is even true for like some of the most well-known publishers in the industry. And that kind of leads me to think that they take a shotgun approach where they just sign 50 games a year and they kind of pick some winners, like maybe 3-4 games they see they have a lot of potential, and then that's what they invest all of their attention in, and the others they just like cut their losses and just basically don't market. So look at the median number of reviews their games have, and avoid publishers that pick winners. Okay, so what a publisher really adds to your game. Outside of development funding, which is what most people want a publisher for, knowledge of how the Steam algorithm works and how you can use it to your advantage, that's very important, and I'll show you why in a bit. Cross-promotion potential is another one of the most important things. So yeah, just having a publisher that has other titles that are closely related to your game in terms of setting or in terms of genre matters a lot. And also their existing fan base. Like, do they bring in new fans when they sign your game? Well-known and respected publishers that serve a specific niche tend to have that and tend to have a lot of goodwill from the community. Localization support is also something they help with, covering legal and financial hurdles, testing, and QA. Right. So the best thing about publishers is that it validates your game's potential. Like, that's if publishers, even if they're not good, but they still want to get in contact with you and see what the game is about, then you at least know that you have something there. Your game has potential. Another conclusion is just start talking about your game. That's like getting your game out there is how publishers see you and can contact you if they're interested. Now might be a bit more difficult than in 2022 when we signed with the publisher, because the game development industry is in a totally different place now. And also join a game development community. For us, the turn-based Thursday indie game community on Twitter was super important. So we signed with Hooded Horse in the end, at the end of 2022. And that's when we started, okay, we said, now it's time to, now we're actually a game. Let's just focus on it. And I was still at that time, leading a bunch of projects for EdgeFlow that were outsourcing for other games, including a failed MMO that I was art director on. But I started to cut everywhere I could and just focus the studio on developing the game. So after Hooded Horse made the initial announcement, wishlists started to go up. The first spike there is actually from Dev.Play. They had a Steam feature, and that was our first big. We've made 400 wishlists in a day, and that seemed super impressive. And then the middle and the next spike and the higher average between them was when Hooded Horse announced that they signed us on, and some websites picked up the article. Okay, so next big thing was we had the first Steam event that we participated in. It was Tacticon. It was an event focused on tactical games, turn-based games, and RPGs. It was actually a pretty small event. We didn't have a lot of hope for it. It was also the first event, so we didn't know what to expect. And the publisher decided not to do anything to market our game at that point, because it was it would create the wrong idea in people's minds of what the game was, because it was still very incomplete. However, thanks to the activity on Twitter and our involvement with the indie game communities there, which I referred to a bit before, our demo did get played and picked up by a few well-known indie game creators, the biggest of which is Splattercat, who picked a pretty good thumbnail and got us a lot of views. As a funny side note, half of the comments were just disappointment that it's a card game. I saw the big cool battleship, and now I come here and see cards. That was not great to hear, but some people in the end did try out the game and liked it, which was super nice. So here are some wishlist stats in the from the day before Tacticon started and for the next month. The big spike there is when Splattercat played it. I think he brought in about 2,200 wish lists based on just his video, and then we had like a really big long tail afterwards where we made about 100 wish lists a day for a month, even after the events stopped. So that was great. Like, so this is what a Steam event is. Nice. Let's participate in it as many as we can and just like rack up the hundreds of thousands of wish lists. But no other event after Tacticon did as well. Bigger events are not better necessarily, just because they have a lot more games in general, bigger games, and it's very difficult to get a good feature at the event. So after we had the Tacticon demo out, we got the opportunity to take Breachway to Gamescom, which was in no small part thanks to our RGDA that gave us a place at the Romanian booth. And we also went to the Tokyo Game Show. Actually, a fun thing is that at Gamescom, we actually had two booths. Like we were, I think we were one of the few games there that had two booths. We also had a booth with our publisher, which was fun. Yeah, so a bit about game shows. They used to be very big. Like they used to be one of the main ways developer marketed their games through journalists, and they were also very everyone heard of them, and they had a lot of prestige attached to them. And it's also like it's really cool to be validated and have your game present at an event, especially for like if you worked so much and you just have a imposter syndrome. That's what am I doing? Being at an event kind of like makes things seem more real. It's also a great opportunity to meet with your remote team members if you have any, meet other friends in the industry you made from indie game communities, and just talk to other devs. It's a good way to motivate your team. Again, makes everything feel more real after being stuck in an office for 4 years just by yourselves, no one else around you knowing what you do or understanding what you do. Just being somewhere where games are celebrated feels pretty good and like really raises your team's morale. It's also great for direct feedback on your game. Like you see a lot of people, if you have a stand, you see a lot of people playing your game. You see like what the new player experience, like where it lacks, where it can be improved. Yeah, and it just highlights what people get excited about when playing your game, so you know how to like bring that up a notch. Okay, the less good part about game shows is they can be expensive, like travel, accommodation, renting a booth, they all add up. It's also time-consuming. Some last for up to a week, and this is not keeping in mind the time it takes to prepare for them, and then the time it takes after to just recover from all the insanity. They actually have zero impact or close to zero impact on your wish lists or exposure. So if you want to go to an event for exposure, don't do it for other reasons. And the alternative is that Steam events are free, and they're way more valuable for wish lists. So if you want wish lists, that's where they are. Also, going to an event that has like almost 500,000 people attending can be a good way to get COVID, basically, which we got a really bad case of. Right. So when the game was nearing completion, meaning the money was running out, we basically prepared for the big thing before your launch, which is Steam Next Fest. That's where all of our hopes were. And this is where having a publisher that knows the Steam algorithm really paid off. They somehow managed to get us a spot on the homepage of Steam Next Fest, like right at the bottom of the first page. And that was enough to bring a lot of players in. So yeah, that was actually great. It resulted in about 70,000 wish lists in the following month. Like you can see the big spike there. We had like 7,000 wish lists in the first day of because we were on the first page. Then we slowly like drifted off of the next page as bigger games climbed up. But still, like it brought a lot of wish lists in the following month. And we ended up being the 26th most played demo at Next Fest, which is I think the only other card game that was higher was Balatro, but that's Balatro. So, all right, so a bit about Steam Next Fest, and I'll hurry up because I know time's up. Yeah, it's basically the biggest event for unreleased games. You can only participate in it once. It's generally best to participate in the event that's closest to your launch, so the game is as complete as possible, because that's the first impression people have about your game. Getting your demo played is actually more tricky now than it was when we were in NextFest, because the algorithm changed. Now all of the games kind of randomly appear on people's pages initially, and then they get sorted based on number of players. So the games with higher players with a higher player count go up the list, and eventually the big games go there. But it does give all games a chance at the beginning. But it's also important to get content creators to play your game, and because then people know about it, and it gives you more players, so you climb up higher on the list. And also have your demo on Steam at least a week before the event. I would have it a month before the event, because you'll catch a lot of bugs when you make your first demo. Right, so back to it. This is a long presentation. I thought it was an hour, I'm sorry. So we planned to release the game in March, but because we wanted to really capitalize on NextFest, we basically put all of the game we had into the demo, and we were supposed to release in a month. That wasn't doable. We decided not to, and the publisher agreed. So eventually we delayed a bunch more times. We managed to release on the 26th of September. What was here? Nothing important. Yeah, we had no meta progression. There was we made all of the mistakes that you can basically make. We had no meta progression. We had a lot of bugs. We didn't have enough content, and that's how we released. And this is our release. Yeah, which funny enough, we thought it was we worked a lot before release on the game for really long hours, and we always thought that this would be our moment of triumph when we hit release. We had the party planned, but reviews started coming in, and yeah, it turned out to be the lowest point in our morale for a few key reasons, which is first of all, it's overcommitting. A couple of weeks before launch, our publisher asked if we could add cloud saves, because they're very important. We said yes, of course, because what can be difficult about it? We didn't have time to test. It was it led to a lot of issues. A lot of people losing their save data, the game not being able to run because they were trying to run it from two separate machines, and it just didn't work. Cloud saves didn't work because they didn't have enough time to be tested. We also didn't know if you want your game on GOG and the Epic Game Store, you need to integrate their APIs, make achievements, which also took a lot of time on the final week of launch, which we didn't plan for. We didn't test localization enough. The publisher wanted Breachway to be localized in 16 languages. And because we didn't have enough time to test, we had some critical bugs, because of a missing curly bracket. Everyone that played the game in Chinese got a soft lock on entering the shop, which is something you do every game, basically. And so, yeah, we got a lot of negative reviews. All of the negative reviews from China, were negative, and we didn't know why, because we didn't know about the bug existing because we never played the game in Chinese. And it took us a couple of days to figure it out and fix it. We also didn't balance the game around new players. During the development, we tested the game with our most active Discord players that we got from the demos that we have. We had a bunch of really hardcore players that really loved the game, and we were talking to them daily, and we were tweaking the game based on their feedback, which led to a super difficult game that people were very frustrated with on launch. Because then the more casual players came in, and they were like, "What the hell is this?" And also as a result of the long development cycle, we stopped being able to play the game. I hit play on the game, and I just freeze. I can't play it. So it's so difficult to know how your game plays. Is it difficult? Is it easy? What is easy? And hopefully, after taking a few weeks break, I'll be able to do it again. We'll see. So the result after the first week was we had a mixed review score. I think the lowest was 64%. We spent about 18 to 20 hours a day in the first week working on the issues that came up, and it was basically hell. We also didn't set expectations for launch, which led to which led to team morale being really low. And we wanted the game to do well, but we didn't define what doing well was for the game. So our expectation was like, yeah, we'll be rich, the game will be good. Yeah, that's what everyone imagines when they make games, I hope. At least that's what I imagine. But when we were faced with reality of what the game launch actually was, like we were all super let down because we didn't set expectations. We didn't look at other games. We didn't have realistic expectations for it in terms of sales, wish lists, and everything. So yeah, because of what we perceived as a failed launch, because of fatigue, because of low review scores, and because of rapidly dropping sales, that led to a lot of frustration, burnout, and tension within the team. We also didn't control our budget well enough because we delayed multiple times. We ran out of money. So Hooded Horse was nice and offered to give us additional funding as advance on royalties, which is basically advance on royalties is a loan, with a zero interest loan, but you have to pay back from the money you make. So basically all of the money that the game was making, like a certain percentage of it went to Hooded Horse as their publisher take, and the other certain percent was supposed to be ours, but from that we had to repay the advance on royalties, which meant we didn't get any money from one, which was totally Hooded Horse was super nice. It was totally our fault. I don't want to paint them I don't want to put them in a bad light here. So this resulted in a vicious cycle of where we had to take more money out as advance just to be able to work on the game, to be able to pay back the money we took before. So it's like a spiral of debt. So in the first month after release, left us in a pretty bad spot. We were broke. We were also in debt still, and we had to work like 16 hours a day to fix things, which also ultimately led to one of the team members leaving the company a couple of months ago. It was because it was like a really tough moment. All right, so where are we now? We are at mostly positive in terms of review scores. We're at 75%. We got like we still get a decent amount of reviews each month, which is still good. So it's not all doom and gloom. Like we persevered, we started taking action, solving problems. Our review score started to recover as we addressed issues that player mentioned, and it's so much easier to work on the game that you have constant feedback on, rather than just being unable to play your game and just working on it on things you think are good. So having direct player feedback is great, and I wish we would have released in early access sooner. That way we didn't have to take as much money as advance on royalties, and we would have had a worse launch, but we would have had better feedback to fix it faster. So the good thing is that sales didn't flatline in a couple of months as we expected, because some games, that does happen to some games. And in fact, this month, like this last month, May, was our best month in terms of sales and player count since January. So that was really good. We just released a big update at the start of May, which helped. But also, the publisher made a bundle with our game and 2 other games, which sells really well. So that also helped. And we are still, of course, in early access. So the game still changes. We're still developing it. And we still have another launch. So we're committed to finishing the game, but we're treating it more as a marathon now. We worked a lot of long hours, and we really burnt out on it. So in order to finish the game, we have to keep a steady pace, make constant progress, and just have fun with it. Especially now that most of the mechanics are in, and all we need is content. It's basically time to have fun. Now we get to work on the cool stuff without being paid. So this is, if you want anything on the slides, there's a QR code for it. Thank you for being here. We still have something else, though. I promised to show you numbers. because you made it so far. Right, so putting things into context a bit, like I said, we were 4 people that worked full-time on it until 2021 when we pivoted to single player. Only Mike, our programmer, got paid to work on the game part-time. Starting 2021, he goes full-time. In August of 2021, Paul started to work on the game, was the second person going full-time. He was a 3D modeler. He was doing 3D models initially. Then as time went on, he did a lot of stuff. He did cards, content, testing, everything. It was great. At the end of 2022, Ilie joined our program. He was a tech artist. He made a lot of cool shaders and explosions, and also later started doing some programming. And then I was actually the last person to join full-time. I joined in March of 2023, a couple of months after signing with Hooded Horse, when I closed off all of the other outsourcing projects. And then I went full-time. So in terms of, what does this mean in terms of like cost? Programming was the most expensive thing by far. Our programmer is from the US. So like he didn't take a lot of money, just to cover living costs, but he did that for 70 months. So it kind of adds up. The VFX, 3D art, UI, visual scripting, testing, everything was done in-house. So it was basically salaries and weren't that high salaries. Other expenses that people don't take into account, but they add up, is accounting, office space, office management, paperwork, events, which was around 30K. My own contribution, which was game design, testing, content creation, 3D art, community management, marketing, was about 12K. I took some money from time to time, but usually, like for most of the development process, I didn't take any money to reduce development costs, but it still ended up at $412,000 if you add it all up. In terms of contractors, music cost us about 18.5K. Sound effects were so far free, thanks Cosmin Mirza. Cards and portrait art, which we outsourced because we were doing 3D only, was about 35K. And additional programming was another 15K. So that's $68,500. Yeah, so total expenses were almost $500,000. Our total income to date, EdgeFlow's income, which is something I can talk about. I can talk about sales, or I can, but I didn't ask for, so maybe it's not good. But what the company made, which is we can disclose, is almost 110,000. It doesn't include the last 2 months of sales because it takes 2 months from Steam to actually pay things out. This is income, but we used it to pay off the loan we took. But in general, like we are still $270,000 in the red. This is my talk. Thank you. But although we are still in early access, and I think I'm pretty confident that we'll make it back. It's just like it just takes more time.
You have to wait.
Just waiting, and you have to be like, confident that it will work. Hopefully, we'll see. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Victor, for the insightful and candid presentation.
Sorry I went this long.
No worries. We'll take just one question because we're over time. Anybody?
Yeah. And for questions, we can also meet outside afterwards. So, but yeah, if there's any questions.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
So I kind of have a point of contention with something you said.
Sure, definitely.
You said that the platform on which you promote yourself is less important than the act of self-promotion itself.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to start saying, by saying I somewhat disagree. I think we need to be more aware that the platforms we choose to promote ourselves is very, very important. So, for example, if you know the game Lethal Company and how it became very popular on YouTube with short compilations on Insta and TikTok, which is a clear model that was then taken by its successor, which is Repo, if you also know about Repo, which started with tiny clips, funny compilations. So basically the indie studio was doing that. And they very much invested in TikTok clips, and Instagram. So now Repos fan base has grown significantly, and my question is, how come you feel that the platform is less important than the act of self-promotion itself?
Just because little company probably didn't know that that was the winning formula when they started self-promotion. I think they kind of stumbled on it, or maybe not little company because they had some other game that did it before them. But it's like the most difficult thing for me is to start. And once you start, you can get feedback, you can see how things work, you can get some metrics, see if your energy is well spent on the platform you're on, or if you have to switch on other platforms. That's why I think starting is important. It doesn't matter where, because you can get kind of caught in analysis paralysis. And should I do TikTok? Should I do Twitch? Should I do something else? That's my.
I see your point. It's you just want to get started, but I think you should also take into account which platforms are very popular, hot right now, so to speak, and which formats of self-promotion.
That is true, but
we are, sorry to interrupt, we are talking about a generation, upcoming generation with an attention span of, I just don't even know, like a few seconds, myself included. And I think the platform is really important. So that I was very curious on why you saw it differently.
So you're right. You're totally right. But there are a few problems, not problems, but there are a few reasons why I chose the platform I did choose. Is because first of all, I don't use TikTok. I have no idea how to use it. And I think that would be very obvious if I try to market myself there. And second of all, you're right about this upcoming generation, short attention spans. But actually, the average kind of player of Breachway is people my age, like 35 and up. So I think we kind of tend to develop games that we like, which then attract players from our age bracket, which is, I think it's fine. Like there's a lot of games for everyone. But if I were to try and make a game to reach 16-year-olds, I don't think I'd make a very good job of it.